Steel and Flame, Book 1 of the Guilds of Avlaan series is available on Amazon. If you like fluffy wolf-lolly protagonists and Japanese light novels, follow the link below to check it out.
Hello, Leonardo Cornejo here with another video, and today I want to talk to you about something that happened in the past few weeks. This is the ending of My Hero Academia, or Boku no Hero Academia for those who prefer the Japanese name. Generally in Latin America we use the Japanese names, but I will use the English name because it's simpler. It's simpler, seriously, it's simpler. One less word. The thing is, everyone is disappointed of this ending, and I think it's good. That's the thing. I think it's good, and most people were influenced by memes made by people with no reading comprehension who developed a negative opinion of the manga out of no reading comprehension. That's the thing. I won't go into much detail about the philosophy or whatever. I know that manga was always kinda mediocre. The truth is, it was a generic superhero manga. The truth is, Shy, which is another superhero manga, was a bit better. But My Hero Academia isn't bad. It isn't bad. The thing is, it has many flaws because it is a generic manga. Generic manga always has flaws. It has many flaws because it is not a very researched manga, I would say. It's simple. It's basically simple dumb fun. If you don't like simple dumb fun, you won't like it. I understand people don't always like it. Some people really hate simple dumb fun. I mean, having simple dumb fun doesn't mean watching something deeper. And some people have built an unrealistic expectation. My Hero Academia was never going to be another Berserk. It's even, I would say, it's even less philosophical than Naruto. The only advantage is that, unlike Naruto, which tries and fails to get too philosophical, because it's basically Buddhist propaganda, but without much, without getting too deep, and then it looks bad on accident. It isn't that it is supposed to look bad. It isn't really bad. I actually like Naruto, but it tries to get into Buddhist philosophy without getting too deep, which is a mistake. Basically trying to stay shallow to talk about something deep. That doesn't work. This manga is more about superheroes. It's about what is to be a hero. And that's where the mistakes begin. And I will point at some of the things that people say. I understand if you didn't like it. I understand if you didn't like the fact that Midoriya is a very static protagonist. He doesn't really change. It's an ending with its flaws, but it's much better than the previous arc. The epilogue arc is better than the previous one because the previous one sucked. I said it in another video that the previous arc sucked. That the whole thing of trying to make us sympathize with really unlikable criminals, because they are unlikable criminals, trying to make us sympathize with them so we can understand that Midoriya wants to save them even though they can't be saved, isn't great. To be honest, it's bad. That previous arc, it was awful. It was really bad. But the ending was actually good. The problem is that it had a really bad previous arc that led to it. There are some plot holes. I think there are some plot holes, things that were not explained. I mean, we still haven't seen Midoriya's dad, even though we were supposed to. He didn't show up in the manga. That's a plot hole. There are some plot holes, but overall it was a good ending. It was better, despite what the people say, it was better than Attack on Titans. Because the ending in Attack on Titan, it was bad for many reasons, including the, how do I say it, the futility of the story. Basically, this thing about fighting with all these titans to end all wars, and in the end, the battle to end all wars, and in the end, the wars never end, and the titans will return eventually. That's bad. That's bad because a futile story makes you feel like I wasted my time. That's that's the sentence I will use to describe that feeling, as a perception of wasting your time. In the case of My Hero Academia, there was change. In fact, the reason people are dissatisfied is because there was change, because heroes are no longer that necessary. That's where we begin with what's basically what people complain about. First of all, people complained about Midoriya becoming a teacher instead of continuing being a hero. He sacrificed his power. He sacrificed the power of One for All to defeat Shigaraki and All for One. During the whole manga, we are told about this thing about self-sacrifice, about putting your life in the line to help others, about not necessarily trying to sacrifice yourself, but being willing to if it means saving people. So it is consistent. Now, I didn't like the thing about him sacrificing his power to save a fucking edgy idiot. I didn't like that, but it already happened, so the ending is consistent with that. The mistake was prior to the ending, and we are told that he lost that power and that he's crippled. It's something that we are told right after the final battle. We are told that he basically sustained so much injuries, he's basically disabled now and he basically can't fight anymore. Even though he continues the hero curse, and he mentions that he finished it and that he lost what was left of the power after graduation, he can't continue fighting physically, with or without powers. So instead of basically quitting and becoming a burger flipper, which is the stupid shit people are saying, he becomes a teacher at UA, basically becoming the mentor to the next generation of heroes. This was to draw a parallel with All Might. All Might gives his power for someone who can continue being a hero after suffering a crippling injury from One for All, from All for One. All Might sacrifices One for All to make sure someone else can be a hero, because he can no longer fight the way he used to because of his injuries. There is also the parallel for the fact that he continues being a hero to some extent for a while, which is what Midoriya does. He continues taking the hero courses and basically being a hero, but he can no longer stay a hero. He knows the time is limited. He knows eventually he will need to resign, and he decides to become a teacher at UA. That's the same. All Might and Midoriya do exactly the same. The thing is, they lost their power, and over the course of years, they start becoming unable to use it. So it makes sense. Basically, that's the thing. It is not that there was never this message of you can be a hero without powers. That's something Midoriya holds on to. That's something All Might held on to when he wasn't a hero, when he started, because he didn't have powers. That's something Mirio holds on to after losing his powers temporarily. But the truth is, the story opens with the sentence, not all men are created equal. The story starts with the sentence saying, if you don't have powers, you can't really become a hero. And these people learned it the hard way. Then they got powers, so because the story needs to continue. But the truth is, it was never about him becoming a hero without superpowers. This isn't like the, how do I say it? The wasted potential of Rock Lee in Naruto, because Rock Lee basically says you can be a ninja without powers, and there is like proof of what he's saying, but we never really see him going all out, and that's because basically Kishimoto forgot. the thing is, it was wasted potential. It wasn't a lost message. It wasn't anything, but he neglected the potential of that story. In this case, it's not the same. In this case, you are told, no, you are mistaken. You need powers to be a hero. But you can get powers in other ways. And you can. In fact, you will, even if it is not through things like all for one. You can actually like one for all. You can actually get powers through technology, which is what All Might did by the end. He no longer had any powers, so he used technology to continue being a hero, which is eventually what Midoriya does. He uses technology to continue being a hero. But meanwhile, you need to retire. And what can you do if you have all this potential to be a hero, all this drive, all this knowledge, all this skill, all this experience, but you can't fight? Be a teacher. That's what they say. Those who can do teach, and those who can't teach game. The thing is, if you can do it, teach other people how to. Make sure other people how to do it, because you have the knowledge. That's what Midoriya does. He was crippled, disabled, continues helping by teaching. And people say, oh, nobody recognized him, people forgot him. No, they didn't. There is a monument to him, to all the other people who fought in that battle. The thing is, and that's important too, because it's part of the plot, it's actually the motivation behind the villain known as Stain. It's the motivation for many of the villains who are resentful to society. It's the motivation to drive change, and it's a crucial part of Endeavor's soft plot. Being popular, being the number one, doesn't mean being the greatest hero. Being popular, being on the spotlight, doesn't mean being the greatest hero. The greatest hero can be the greatest hero without even being noticed, without even being thanked for it, without making a cent. And that's what happens with Midoriya. And since he was retired, people basically see him as a legend now, because they know what he did. There are monuments to him. He was shown in the news. People remember what he did. But they don't even know if he's still alive. And that's why the kid who actually admires him gets shocked when he sees he's a normal teacher, a real person. He's like, you are real, because they thought he disappeared. He saved the world and then disappeared. No, he didn't really disappear. He retired. He became a teacher. But he left the spotlights, and people start forgetting his whereabouts. People start caring less and less about the present and more about his past presence, because he stops being really that relevant after retiring. And the message is there. He's still the greatest hero, and people say like, oh, but we were promised he will be the number one hero. No, he was going to be the greatest hero. This is not One Punch Man. And even in One Punch Man, the joke is that he is the best hero, but he is neglected by everyone. People forget about him. People don't even notice what he did. The thing is, the story is about being the greatest hero doesn't mean being the most popular, the number one, the most relevant. You are constantly told that by trying to become the number one hero, Endeavor basically destroys himself and those around himself. That it costs him, that he loses everything to become the number one hero, and even loses the potential of becoming the greatest hero. He stops being a great hero because he wants to be the number one. And then there are people who say, oh, he lost the position of number one hero to Bakugo. No, he didn't. Actually, Bakugo is probably one of the most hated heroes, and we are told he is always losing his position in the ranking because of his behavior. That's something mentioned by Eraserhead. Bakugo is not the greatest the number one hero. He will never be, and he will never be the greatest hero either. The number one hero in terms of popularity is Mirio Togata, who is actually the other candidate for a successor to All Might. So basically, one becomes the greatest, the other becomes the number one. And you had that friendly rivalry between Mirio Togata and his hero position as Lemillion and Izuku Midoriya as Deku. You have this friendly rivalry where both are aiming to follow the footsteps of All Might, and Midoriya becomes the greatest hero while Mirio becomes the number one. So basically both fulfill their goal to some extent. But Midoriya can no longer fight. He's crippled, he's retired, he becomes a teacher. I will emphasize it as many times as necessary. Then people are saying, oh, but but his friends ghosted him for 8 years. No, the text says that they have less spare time to meet ever since they began to have jobs. That happens to everyone, even to me. Even to me. I work from home. I'm a freelancer, freelance translator, independent writer. I work from home and I don't always have time with my friends. I had this friend back in high school and college who we met every week. He got married, now divorce raped by the way. He got married and we no longer met every week. It became once a month, then once a year. Then I finished college and I began to work on both my writing and as a translator. And we rarely see each other. We sometimes talk online or on the phone, but we rarely see each other. Because we no longer have the spare time. Ever since the divorce, he's actually working even harder. He has 2 jobs now. And I have this. I work from home, but I don't have the spare time all the time. And my friends and I don't always match schedules, which is the situation Midoriya is found into. I know many of the readers of this manga are still in high school, are still in college. They probably don't know what it's like. But when you have a job, and your friends too, your schedules aren't going to match. Your schedules aren't going to match most of the time, and you will have less social life. And you will have more social life with the people you are at your workplace than the people who were your friends in college or high school. And that's the situation with Midoriya. He literally spends most of his spare time with the other UA teachers, who are also his friends, like we see in the manga when he's talking to Eraserhead. It is not that he lost his friends or that they are ghosting him for 8 years. It's that they graduated, got a job, and started having less spare time, which is normal. And if you don't think it's normal, either you have never been in that situation, because you are still in the education system, you haven't had a job in your life, or you should get a fucking job because you already graduated from high school. And college is a waste of time for you. The thing is, if you have a job, you know you have less time for social life. And that's what they are talking about. And especially in Japan, where the culture is work hard and work even harder, don't party. Unless the company says you got to party. Then you party because the company ordered so. So in Japan, where the work culture is basically on border with working yourself to death, where there are issues such as karoshi, which is working yourself to death, of course people will have less social life the more they are focused in their job. So basically, they have a job, no social life, and that's what he said. Not that they ghosted him for 8 years or that they forgot about him for 8 years. He is just working as a teacher while the rest of the class is working elsewhere. They have a job elsewhere and they don't meet that often. That's normal. That's logical. And people say, oh, Uraraka is with Bakugo instead of him. No, actually, Horikoshi's assistant drew Midoriya and Uraraka married. So basically, both Horikoshi and his assistant probably think, yeah, it's not on the manga, doesn't necessarily it's canon, but it's nice to think about it. So they didn't really think, oh, she's going with Bakugo. Basically, they have chosen their own ship, their own headcanon, and one of them is the other, so the headcanon is a bit stronger. It's still a headcanon because it's not shown in the manga, but actually makes kind of sense that despite not seeing each other, they could be married. And that's actually a Midoriya family thing. Let me explain. First of all, we see Uraraka wearing this around her neck, this face mask Midoriya wore, which means they are still really close. Maybe they are still in a relationship, maybe not married, but still in a relationship. It's quite a complex situation. We don't know exactly what has happened through all those 8 years. But what we know is one thing: we never saw his dad. We never saw his dad. And his mother mentions he's always too busy working overseas. So, if you already have that situation in that family, it is entirely possible that they are married. I mean, it's not conflicting with the canon that Midoriya and Uraraka are married, and that she's obviously working, that they don't always see each other, because they don't work in the same thing. It's entirely possible because it's a Midoriya family thing. Don't take this too seriously because it's not confirmed canon, but basically, no, she is not sleeping with Bakugo. And no, that doesn't mean they never were in a relationship or they are not, it's unconfirmed. And since it is an action shonen manga, it doesn't matter if it is confirmed or not, because shippers are inconsequential. I really don't like shippers. I will emphasize that. I really don't like shippers. They are really a problem in every fandom they touch. But the thing is, this is not about romance. This is an action manga. It's not about romance. So if they are in a relationship or not, it's irrelevant, doesn't need to get confirmed. The Horikoshi's assistant already basically said he likes the idea, Horikoshi didn't complain, so it's not conflicting the canon to say that. What is conflicting the canon is she's saying he's a cock and she basically dumped him for Bakugo. Or that they ghosted him for 8 years. In fact, I think Bakugo has more feelings for Midoriya himself than for Uraraka. Probably he's gay. Just kidding. But the joke is related to something else. And this is where there is a plot hole, in my opinion. While I think it's good because it ends in this positive note that yeah, you lost your power and you had to wait 8 years, but now you have this power armor which will allow you to continue being a hero. You can go back to fulfill your dream. I like that, but I think 8 years for building that armor is a bit weird. We don't have an explanation of why they took so long. You could fix the plot hole by writing an explanation saying, oh, it took 8 years because we fixed all the risk factors of the previous prototype, because we added imitations of all these quirks, because we had to miniaturize it a lot more, because if we released it before, it would have been huge, ridiculously huge, because we needed funding. There are many reasons to explain why it took 8 years. And the funding one makes sense because basically they mentioned that Bakugo was the one helping funding it with other classmates, but basically he was the one who wanted it the most. He was the one who was doing as much as possible to get funds for it. So maybe the reason it took so long is because he was not that affluent, that was basically working his ass to get it done. And that's why I am jokingly saying he's in love with Midoriya, because seriously, dude, you sacrifice everything for 8 years to get him back in the trade? Yeah, that's commitment. That's commitment, man. But the thing is, it's not bad. It's actually the best part. It's actually the best part, and it opens for a small follow-up showing what it's like to be a hero without powers, using technology, explaining all these plot holes, finally confirming he's married to Uraraka. I would really like that because it would bother a lot of shippers, and because it's cute, and because you have all these interactions through the rest of the story, basically saying it's possible. Well, I don't know. I think Horikoshi needs a break. He needs a break. He doesn't have the time to write any follow-up today or tomorrow or this year, and we don't know if it will happen or when will happen. But if it happens, I hope it fixes all the plot holes and it confirms the relationship between Uraraka and Midoriya, because it's cute, seriously. That's it. I mean, there is not much to say. The manga is consistent. The ending is consistent with the messages we were constantly given, with the story we were constantly given. The only part I really think people legitimately can complain about are the plot holes and the fact that Midoriya really had no character development. He really had none. I know static characters aren't necessarily a bad thing. I know static characters can actually be good. I know there are many popular static characters, but Midoriya really lacks character development, and I understand it can get frustrating to the people who didn't like his personality to begin with. I didn't like some traits of his personality. He complains too much. He's too easily affected emotionally. He's basically a super stressed, nervous guy. He can get annoying, but I don't think he's a bad character. I didn't like some traits of his character, but I didn't hate him. But people who found those traits unbearable and saw him still being that same guy through the whole manga, I understand why they hate it. Because they don't like him. They don't like his personality at all, and he doesn't change at all. His only change is basically admitting that sometimes you need to kill a villain to save it, which is something Gran Torino tells him. He tells him sometimes you need to kill a villain to save that villain. And other than that, there is no other development. Other than him learning to accept some harsh realities, there is no development. So I understand why people who don't like static characters will be upset. I understand that. I understand why such people will hate the manga itself, will hate him. But the manga ended with a good ending. It was a good ending. It was an objectively good ending. With a terrible previous arc, not the epilogue, but the final battle arc. It sucked. It was awful. The thing is, that arc was really bad, and it really made people basically. And I say that when I saw how the manga was ending, I thought, to fix the bad taste of the final arc, you would need something great, and it didn't come because it wasn't a really great finale either. It was good, but not beyond good, not great, not big. Doesn't fix basically and I think that's part of the problem. Doesn't fix the burnout of the previous arc. Many people dropped it. Many people dropped it during the last arcs, and they didn't get to the finale. And then they just heard the rumors or the memes, and they are saying it's crap. Shit. Some technical difficulties, but we are back. They are saying it's crap. They only saw the memes. They didn't read the finale, but they have heard the rumors, as I said. Because they dropped it. Because they stopped reading it years ago. Because they gave up on it years ago. Because they hated it years ago. But that's because the previous arc sucked. It was bad. Because it dragged on for too long. Because you have all these battles and the villains winning every single one, and then you have this hero basically pushing the villain back, and then the villain wins again. That's annoying. We all knew the villains were going to lose anyway. So dragging it for too long was a bad idea. That was a mistake. I think another problem is that people have this weird expectation of these like dramatic endings, of having like the heroes looking at the aftermath of the battle and then saying, "Oh, but we are heroes and we are here," like in Marvel movies. I do believe Marvel movies have created a brain rot. I do think Marvel brain rot is real, and I think that also influenced the opinion people had on this manga, because they probably were expecting that kind of Marvel-like ending with the heroes walking as a group, saying, "Oh, the world might be in danger still, but we are here. We are heroes. We are My Hero Academia." That's not going to happen. That's not how it is. It's Midoriya becoming a teacher just like All Might, and then getting this power armor just like All Might. It's Midoriya becoming fast forward carbon copy of All Might. That's what My Hero Academia is about. About this boy who is basically All Might but faster. Hopefully not in bed. The thing is, you are not going to have that Marvel brain rot ending. You are not going to have this moment where they say, "Oh, but we are here. We are going to save the day," and the heroes walking to the horizon or to the camera. I don't know. I don't know exactly how. And then after the credits roll, you have this teaser for the sequel. That's not how this works. It was not going to be an Avengers Endgame ending with everyone basically moving through their lives with their lives made a mess, and people burying their friends and shit like that, and Bakugo dying. No, that's not how it works. That's not what it was going to happen. You are not going to get a Marvel ending out of this. And if you were looking for a Marvel ending, maybe you were reading the wrong series. Because there are many moments where it deviates a lot from Marvel, where it should deviate from Marvel, because I seriously think the MCU created a brain rot. The MCU brain rot is real, and I did see people saying, "Oh, I would rather have a Marvel ending. I would rather watch the MCU because that's good and that's better than this." There is an MCU brain rot which I think some people were influenced by. But that's not how manga works. Manga works as a simpler hero's journey story, where you have these heroes, they go through all these adventures and the calling, and then you have the return to normalcy, return to the daily life after the change. I wonder if all these people, as I said, affected by the MCU brain rot, would react the same way to the ending of Lord of the Rings, either the books or the films, if they were released today. If they would be angry about the fact that Frodo didn't keep the ring, that he lost his finger, that they returned to the Shire, that they tried to resume their normal lives, I think these people would hate it, because that's what happened here. That's what happened here. Midoriya is Frodo, and the loss of his finger is the loss of his powers. He doesn't go on adventures anymore, just like Frodo. He returns to the Shire and just doesn't want to go on adventures anymore. That's it. It's like that kind of ending. It's a hero's journey, and people don't seem to understand that. People seem to be bothered, and people don't understand that even the whole thing about sacrificing one for all. Even though I didn't like that part. I didn't like that part because he didn't sacrifice it fighting. He sacrificed it to give it to the enemy, trying to save a fucking asshole. I didn't like that, but I respect it because it makes sense. Because you have this fight between All for One, who is basically trying to gather all this power for himself, holding on to power desperately to fill a void he has in his heart. He's a fucking asshole for that. He tramples over people trying to hold on to this power. And then you have these heroes, the carriers of One for All, who are willing to keep their power up to stop evil, to stop that power-hungry villain. And one of them finally does it by relinquishing this power, and then kind of forcing open that void in All for One's heart and making him break spiritually to the point that he dies. It's basically sacrificing power to defeat that being which craves power the most. It makes sense. I think it was a bad idea because I really, really hated Shigaraki. I really hated All for One. And basically giving them what they want before they die somewhat annoyed me. And basically trying to make us sympathize with these two assholes who are really horrible people annoys me a lot because I don't care about your fucking sub story. As I said in the video about sympathetic villains, you're still an asshole. You can tell me your sub story about how your mother was a prostitute and your brother never understood you and you basically fed on your dead mother for a while before they took you away from her, and how you were a street urchin who basically survived by being a monster. I don't give a fuck, you're still an asshole. I don't care if you were manipulated by people around you and used by people around you, that you had this trauma because your family hated heroes, that nobody helped you when you were desperate. You are still an asshole who killed the only people who liked you, which were your sister and your dog. I don't care about this sub-story and another character, and I'm really bothered about this part because it bothers me a lot, that Davi survived. We don't know when he will die. He survived. He survived what he had to die with many times. And I hate him because I don't care. He did that to himself. He was a fucking idiot and did everything bad that happened to Davi was self-imposed. He burned himself to near death because he tried to impress his father instead of having patience. He assumed his family wouldn't want him back just because some freak weirdo who kidnapped him told him he's a fucking idiot, and then he starts killing innocent people just to spite his father. He's a fucking asshole and a fucking idiot. That's why I hated the villains, because they are assholes, the vast majority. And that's the thing, they try to make us sympathize with them, and they are assholes. That's why I did what I didn't like about My Hero Academia. But it's not the ending. And the ending, the negatives you might find in the ending are repercussions of this. They are repercussions of the previous arc. The ending was good. What you hated, and probably don't realize, was the previous arc. What you hated, and you probably don't realize because you have a limited reading comprehension, and I don't blame you. I blame Marvel, I blame the West for that, I blame the MCU brain rot for that, I blame the skibidi toilets for that in the case of the younger generations, and I'm not kidding. What you hate and you don't notice because you have brain rot was that previous arc that sucked. It really sucked. It was bad. It was really bad. And the ending left you dissatisfied because you needed a really, really good ending. Not a good, but a very good ending. Not a just good, fine, acceptable ending, but a really good ending to compensate for a terrible previous arc. To compensate for a terrible final battle arc, which sucked. But that's it for today. Have a good one.